My wife started a new job and got brainwashed by her colleagues into thinking the miserable single life was the way to go. She served me with a protection order and proof that I was cheating. So I told her sayonara, because she just ruined her own life by doing this to herself. Hey, I'm in a really ugly fight with my soon-to-be ex-wife right now. I don't want to discuss this with people close to me because I think I need an unbiased opinion. So I'm turning to the Reddit community for help, and I hope you'll be kind to me because I'm going through a rough patch right now. So about 2 weeks ago, my wife served me with divorce papers and a petition for protective order against me along with proof of me cheating on her. The reason why the proof is in double quotes will make sense soon. For context, my wife, 31 female, and I, 44 male, have been married for 5 years. We were in a serious relationship for 3 years before that, and she was the one who wanted to get married as soon as possible, so she could start a family. We went ahead according to her plan and made sure she was married before 30, even though I wasn't too keen to get married. Not because I didn't love her enough, but just because I'd always been kind of anti-marriage since my parents were divorced and I've never wanted to end up like that. But I also didn't want to lose my wife, so I went along with her life's plan and married her. She wanted to have kids before 35 because she didn't think that after 35 she'd be willing to go through pregnancy, and that was reasonable enough. However, a couple of months ago, I sat her down and had a serious discussion with her and told her that I just didn't think that having kids was a good idea right now because both of us were in a great place and I just didn't feel ready to be a dad. Surprisingly, she said that she felt the same way and told me that we could just adopt later on in life or opt for surrogacy. But for now, she wanted to live life on her own terms too, and didn't want to be bogged down by kids. So we were on the same page at the time and we decided to remain child-free for the time being. I believe that the reason she changed her mind at the time was because she just started working at an online magazine for women specifically, and a lot of her colleagues were single women who were a lot younger than her. The older co-workers were either divorced with grown kids or the ones who were married and were around our age. Very few of them had children. I wasn't sure of it at the time, but now I'm certain that was it. The culture of her new workplace was kind of misandrist, if I'm being honest, and it was all very "I hate men." I didn't care about it initially because I love my wife and I'd like to think that before she started working at that magazine, she did love me as well. So I wasn't worried, and I like to think of myself as a modern feminist man, which is why I believe that whatever her colleagues believed, she wouldn't fall for it, and it definitely would not extend to me. But I was unfortunately quite mistaken. I'd read some of the articles that my wife and her colleagues would publish on their website, and it would always take me by surprise because empowering women was one thing that I supported. But their magazine was pretty openly misandrist and would even put down other women who would choose to get married and opt for a more traditional way of life, which I thought was kind of strange. I'm not an expert on gender studies, but I didn't feel very comfortable with the kind of content my wife was involved in publishing. And we even discussed it several times, but she always reassured me that it was just her work and she didn't actually share the same views as her colleagues, so I felt better about it. However, recently she'd been sort of distant from me and had been refusing to spend time, claiming that she was tired, but then she'd stay up for hours later talking on the phone or texting her coworkers. I feared she was losing interest and tried to organize date nights, but she complained that I was trying too hard and she felt smothered. So I stopped that as well and decided to give her some space and focus on my work instead, like she was. I think that's what backfired on me in a way, because a week ago, my wife sent over divorce papers that she'd filed. I was also served with a restraining order, which meant that I couldn't exactly contact her. At least she'd had the decency to send me an explanation in the form of a letter and a picture through her lawyer of me hugging my ex-colleague who recently quit her job and moved to Colorado. That's the proof that my wife had. And she mentioned in the letter that she couldn't forgive me for cheating on her and that she now had to leave. The restraining order was because she didn't feel safe around me anymore, since apparently I'd been threatening to hurt myself if she ever left me. And so she'd already moved out of the house and wanted me to stay away from her now. I'll explain why everything is in double quotes now. So of course the contents of that letter are not true at all. She knows it, the lawyer knows it, and so do I. I'm guessing she made it all up to make the divorce easier for her monetarily and otherwise. It's my word against her, since there was no tangible evidence of whether I'd done anything of the sort or not. As for the cheating, she knew that I was going to attend my co-worker's farewell party because I told her about it. Even the image that she'd used as proof against me was one that I'd shown her myself, and it had been put up on social media by my co-worker herself. So it wasn't like a secret or anything. I deduced that she'd been influenced by her so-called squad of single co-workers who believed that all men were inferior to them for some reason. I wanted to feel bad about it, but more than upset, I felt livid that my wife was doing something so extreme like this just to get away with a divorce. We'd been together for 8 years almost, and she hadn't even deemed me worthy of an explanation or even the truth. I was 100% sure that she was going to come after me with her lawyer to try and get all the money from me because my wife has always been a little materialistic. But this was a really low and disgusting tactic. I wanted to call her or contact her to somehow confront her about her life, but I decided not to because that wouldn't be good for the restraining order case the entire night. I just kept wondering about what I was going to do next. Of course, I'd already spoken to my lawyer immediately after I received the notice for the divorce and restraining order. But even apart from that, I felt the need to do something. I knew there was no way she was going to get that restraining order against me since she didn't have a legal leg to stand on, but it still irked me that she was doing this to me at all. I couldn't call her to talk to her directly. So I tried to think long and hard about what I was going to do next. And then after a lot of contemplation, I decided to call my father-in-law. Now, this is a big deal for several reasons. The first is that my father-in-law is a strict disciplinarian since he was a war veteran, and even as a grown adult I'm scared of him. Even my mother-in-law is terrified of him, and he's kind of a dictator in his home. I usually avoid speaking to him as much as I can, not because he's scary, but he's very temperamental and has been known not to mince words and hardly even smiles unless he's around his family. It had taken me a long time to get him to like me somewhat, even after my marriage. And despite that, I still didn't feel very comfortable with him. But the situation called for it, and I couldn't just let this happen simply because I was scared to talk to him. I knew that he wouldn't appreciate whatever my wife was trying to do and would definitely take some action against her. So I called him and told him all about what had happened, and I half expected him to explode at me, but he only said that he'd look into it and then hung up without saying one word. Then I got a text from my wife. She told me that she was now ready to talk to me and had already spoken to her lawyer to cancel the divorce proceedings and the petition for the protective order. I didn't understand what was going on at all and what had led to this sudden change of heart overnight. So once again, I decided to call my father-in-law because I just didn't want to talk to my wife. I asked him what exactly he'd done. And at first he told me to mind my own business, but I demanded an explanation because his daughter couldn't just toy with me and my feelings this way. It took me a lot of guts, but I did say it to him. And after a few seconds pause, he told me that he told my wife that he was going to cut her out of his inheritance. It wouldn't have been a big deal, but recently my father-in-law had come into a lot of money because he joined his sister in her business and they were doing quite well. He'd planned to inform us over dinner that weekend. But now, after he got to know what his daughter had been up to and her completely immoral and unethical behavior, he'd cancelled his plans and was already meeting his lawyer to change his will. I was shocked that he'd made up his mind so quickly, but he explained to me that his daughter's materialistic streak had always been an issue with him and he could no longer turn a blind eye to it just because she was his daughter. Apparently, this wasn't even the first time that she tried to pull off something like this, because when she was in high school, she got in some trouble with one of her friends because she'd borrowed money from her and then refused to return it, claiming that she'd never borrowed anything at all. But her dad could see through it. He'd paid off her friend at the time and tried to explain to my wife that she couldn't just take money from people, but she turned it around on him and told him that if he'd been a little less stingy, then she wouldn't have had to borrow money at all. Since then, money has been a point of contention between them. And what she was trying to do with a divorce was obviously a very blatant attempt at taking over all our collective wealth, including our home. She'd even admitted that to him when he'd called her to confront her about it, and she told him to stay out of this because she was going to walk away with all the money and the house and the divorce because she couldn't carry around the weight of a deadweight husband anymore. I'm not joking. She said that about me, which is so funny because if anything, she's the one who's a deadweight burden. I thanked her father for telling me the truth, even though it's been ridiculous that he'd kept things like this from me for so long. Then I texted my wife back saying I was glad that she decided to file for divorce and that now she could live her single dream with her loser colleagues, and then blocked her. After all, she'd been the one who not only tried to divorce me and take over all our hard-earned money, but even tried to frame me as a threat to her just to make the divorce settlement and alimony easier to claim. In case anyone is still wondering how I'm so sure of why she did what she did, I just remind you guys that I was with her for close to a decade and I know how her mind works. I also know how her colleagues were toxic as hell and she's quite easily influenced. And the signs were always there, but I chose to ignore them. I'm just glad that at least my father-in-law came to his senses and finally told me the truth about his daughter, even though the realization happened a tad bit too late. But it happened nevertheless, and I was grateful for it because in a way he did save me. Unfortunately, it didn't end there. And I think that's why I'm here for a fresh perspective right now. Because after I blocked her, she still tried various ways to talk to me, including fake profiles and even using our common friends to get through to me. But I shut it all down and made sure everyone knew that I wasn't willing to communicate with her at all. So they were better off not trying to get to me at all. I was in talks with my lawyer already and we were about to file for a divorce, but then out of nowhere, my wife decided that she was going to come back home. Now, don't ask me why she didn't do that earlier because that's something I don't have the answer to. But a day before yesterday, she came back home and told me that I could still file for divorce if I wanted to. But first, I had to fix a relationship with her father and make sure he doesn't change his will, and also let her stay in my house until she's able to find accommodation for herself. It was ridiculous that she even expected that of me. And I instantly said no and told her to leave the premises or I'd call the police. But she remained rooted to the spot and went on arguing with me. She accused me of being selfish and said that I should forgive her because it was all just a mistake and that she'd been carried away by her friends at work. I told her that I might have forgiven her if she'd done something inconsequential, but this was not something petty and harmless, and to even expect that she could just show up and all would be forgiven was very stupid of her. I told her to leave once more, but she refused yet again and told me that the least I could do was talk to her dad and make him forgive her so she'd at least have a place to live. The sheer audacity to ask me to fix her relationship with her father when she's the one who messed up so badly is what got to me. And here's where I might have screwed up a little. In the heat of the moment, I turned around and told her that she was nothing more than a gold digger. And even her father agreed, which is why he helped me instead of her. I even told her that her dad was right to cut ties with her because nobody deserved to have a nasty, immoral B-word of a daughter like her, and then slammed the door shut right in her face. It was very late at the time and I didn't hear from her for quite a while after that until yesterday when her dad called me up to inform me that she'd shown up at their place late at night and had been sobbing for hours. She was devastated and was acting quite hysterical, which is something none of us had ever seen happening because she was usually quite even-tempered. She was cold and cruel when she was angry, but never one to just start crying. And apparently, When she showed up at her parents' place, she'd been saying that she wanted everything to stop since nobody loved her and she'd failed everyone in her life. They eventually had to give her medicines to calm her down because things had been that bad. My father-in-law didn't like the fact that I told her about how he decided to tell me the truth and said that he believed that it would be confidential. I didn't understand why he thought so, because it also played a role in bringing about this situation as far as I'm concerned. He should have come clean to me about his daughter's tendency to go above and beyond just for money, like a decent human being. But maybe his disciplinarian attitude was just for show and his morals didn't come into play when it concerned his daughter. I told him that I didn't know him and neither did I promise him confidentiality at all. So he shouldn't have expected anything from me. He got pissed and then accused me of ruining his daughter's life because apparently I caused her breakdown. Not her own dishonesty and crooked ways, but I was the one responsible for her mental state right now, for some reason. I don't know what to believe. And I thought that maybe a stranger's perspective could help me out here. So AITA for telling my wife that her father was the one who exposed her after she tried to frame me and take over all my money by filing for divorce and claiming that I've been cheating? Update 1. Hey, so about a week has passed and I've not been in touch with my wife yet, but I know for a fact that she's been served with a divorce notice that I filed a couple of days back. I decided that I was really not at fault here in any way whatsoever. She wanted to have the single life. Fine. She could go ahead and live however she wanted to. But after what she did to me, I was not taking that risk again and letting her continue to be a part of my life. She turned into a liability and I just cannot have that in my life at this stage. I'd always led my life the way she'd wanted me to, but only now I realize how messed up that was for her to even expect. And it's kind of on me too that I just went along with it without ever questioning why everything always had to go according to her plan. I was more of a go with the flow kind of guy. And so I didn't really have a plan at all. And that's why I just went along with whatever she said and did whatever she wanted me to. If I'd known that this would come and bite me in the back someday, then I never would have fallen for it at all. I'm still reeling from the shock of it all, but I'll get over it eventually because she's just not worth it. The last couple of months had been the worst ones of my life because of the emotional distance that had come between my wife and me. But now I won't have to deal with that or her anymore. There's no uncertainty about the future of our relationship now because there is no relationship at all. I don't know what she's doing or how she's been because I've blocked her and my father-in-law both since neither of them cares about anyone apart from themselves. I feel like I totally wasted the last 8 years of my life with that awful woman. I'm sure there will be repercussions to what I did because like I said, my wife is really cold and calculated, so she's not going to just let the divorce take place happily without even any attempt to get back at me. I just want to know what she's going to do because if she does something illegal, then I'll be glad to drag her to court for that alongside our divorce as well. Just like she tried to do to me. Except I'll have real reasons and won't have to depend on lies and try to frame an innocent person just for the money. Update 2. Hello everybody. I'm back again. Unfortunately, I don't think I'll be able to take my wife to court because what she's doing isn't technically illegal since she's not openly defaming me, but it's definitely bothersome to say the least. She and her girl gang of miserable single coworkers are publishing articles that are vaguely correlated to me. They put one up recently about husbands who can only love you as long as you're dancing to their tunes and how they're the most toxic, which is not even true. But she used a couple of anecdotes from our married life. I'm not technically identifiable by that information, but it's still really annoying and I wish there was some legal recourse for this. I even asked my lawyer about it. But since I myself have posted about her on Reddit, I don't think I have the moral high ground here. So she can probably continue to post about me and I'll just have to ignore it all because what else can I do? She has responded to the divorce petition though, and she's not contesting it, but she's demanding quite a sum in the settlement and also our house. I don't think she deserves it and I'm going to make sure that she gets nothing at all. It might be difficult, but I'm going to pour my heart and soul into winning this thing and show her her place now. Update 3. Hello to all the people on Reddit. I know a lot of you guys have been waiting for an update for a really long time now, but I was in the middle of a really ugly divorce and had also quit my job to start my own business. So it was a really busy time for me. Busy in a good way though. I did have a tough time adjusting to my new life as a single man, soon to be divorced from his wife whom he'd thought he'd spent his entire life with, but she was now writing hateful articles about him to get under his skin because that was the only way she could get to him. But I managed somehow. The divorce finally came through 2 weeks ago and you guessed it right. I managed to retain the house for myself and even managed to get out of paying alimony because we were able to prove that she was nothing but a greedy gold digger and she didn't need the money to survive. I'm sure she hated that verdict, but it sucks to be her, I guess. Because now I'm going to be living a great life that doesn't involve her at all. And I couldn't be happier about it. I noticed that even after I was inactive here for almost a year, you guys still occasionally left comments under my posts and I'm grateful for that. Believe it or not, those supportive comments kept me going all along. And I'm always going to be grateful that I posted my side of the story here because that did help me. So thank you guys. And I'm now going to try and live life better now since I'm out of the mess that I've been in for the past couple of months. It's pretty emotional writing this all down, but I'm finally done. And I'm so happy about it right now.